morning. It's Ginny, Tim, and Eli from DS Tech, and we're looking at 2025 already.
Yeah. Where did that year go?
Oh my gosh. Where did the last 10 years go? We're like, holy man. So 2025, we're looking at the top cybersecurity trends for 2025 to keep you in the loop and keep you aware of what's happening, what's coming, that kind of thing. Yeah. So if you have any ideas, questions, or comments, drop them below the video. And then, you know what? Drop scan if you want your free cybersecurity scan too, by the way, because we can get that to you. So what do we got coming up for 2025? Right.
So, as we approach 2025, small and medium-sized businesses must stay vigilant against the cybersecurity threats. A lot of the stuff we've talked in other episodes, but we'll kind of go through all the different things that are out there and then ways you can mitigate or defend against these various attacks. The first one is rise in the AI-powered cyber attack. So you've heard AI this, AI that. AI has been all over the place this year. Well, the attackers are using AI as well to either take code, look for bugs, maybe try to sell various services, clean emails, make your phishing emails look cleaner, harder to look at, improperly spelled words, things like that. So they're using AI trying to do that stuff and make their lives easier. But at the same time, AI is being used on the defense where it's able to use machine learning and various tools to look for trends and things that maybe a human would miss. So it's battling on both fronts, but AI is unfortunately helping the criminals do bad things. But again, it's also playing on the defense.
Yeah, too, they don't spell their words wrong anymore and sound out broken English.
You don't get Microsoft with an O or a zero in there anymore. But it's
There's still some signatures you can see. But,
it's
a lot harder.
You can kind of tell.
Yeah.
Sometimes when it's AI, I mean.
AI generation has like a certain flow to it sometimes.
Yeah, and it's not. It doesn't sound as human, if that makes sense.
But you read through the whole email, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're looking for procurement of blank devices or something."
It looks like it's a template email.
Come on,
well, I get those a lot.
Yeah,
I get those a lot. Yeah. Those get deleted all the time.
Do better, hackers.
Yep.
No, that's okay.
Stay dumb.
They trick enough of us.
Yep. One thing that's also been a trend has been an increased targeting of cloud services, because as more companies are no longer having file servers that have all their data, they're actually using, say, SharePoint, OneDrive, or having different cloud services, maybe a cloud version of their software. So hackers are actually attacking those storage areas because that contains your information. Now, usually if you're a cloud service provider, it will have a lot of security for you. A lot of times you can't really control some of that stuff, but what you can control is access to the server or data. Always set up your multi-factor authentication with the various cloud providers and go through as much as you can to help minimize that. And then usually the giant cloud providers have super great security because they're liable for a lot of stuff, so it will help, but attackers are poking at that. And then you can get alerting. We can set up alerting, for example, on your Microsoft 365, where if it notices anything weird, funky happening with any users that's out of normal behavior, we will get a ticket alert on it. Then we can do reactionary things where if we notice a user's acting strange and it makes no sense, they actually will proactively block the user, log them out, and then we can go ahead and unlock them after we've deemed it was, safe to do so.
One time when I was working from home, Cody called me and said, "Ginny, was this you?"
Yep.
Because it must have bounced around somewhere. It was like a location thing.
Oh my gosh.
What will happen is, say on your phone's using a local cell tower, but if you're using a company issued computer and the VPN is out of another area, you could log into your email, for example, on your phone. 10 minutes later, it thinks you're logging in from another location that's impossible to travel that far.
Yeah.
They call it impossible travel, but it's just because where you're logging in the back end, there's data centers and they may be located in different areas, but because it was a trip, it's like, well, you logged in here and you logged in here, and how did you travel 100 miles in 10 minutes, right? It didn't make any sense. So it will flag, and again, we will verify. We do the same type of stuff for our customers for impossible travel and things like that. Ransomware as a service is becoming more of a threat. So it used to be you had to be a kind of a smart attacker, and you have to do all the ransomware yourself. You look at it, try to get on a network, linger, finally offload and have it kind of go on the actual network. But now, because of AI and tools, there's hackers that are just selling like, hey, we'll just sell you the service for X amount of money and we'll do the ransomware for you on a target. So they're selling their services on a dark web. It's almost like a dark market. And so that's one too, where hackers are using tools and just selling their ransomware as a service to others who may not have the technical expertise to do so, but still want to cause harm. They can basically hire someone to do bad attacks on their behalf.
So that means more
Ransomware
attacks
hitmen.
Yep.
because
Terrible.
more people can do it.
Yeah, because more people are, we
Now
might
if
have
you
like
have
say
the
10 groups out
funds
there
to
that
do
are really
it,
good and
You can do it.
working for 100 different people that are having all various things. They're just trying to sell it like,
It's horrible.
yeah. You're seeing more IoT devices get exploited. It's not as crazy as it used to be, where you hear, the fish tank was hacked to get into the casino, things like that, right? That's still
Yeah,
kind
the
of,
fridge.
That happened.
Yeah.
that can happen. So it's typically a little bit better. I have noticed personally that the IoT providers are being forced to have better passwords, better
Mhm.
initial configurations.
That's
where
true.
back in the day, you'd get your smart thermostat and it was like, to log into this, type in admin. It's very generic and there's no unique password. And every device was shipped with admin. So as a hacker, you can try to hit every single device using that.
Go through a
Whoever is too
neighborhood.
lazy to actually change the password, you start logging in, right? So they are getting better, but yeah, so with that, the biggest thing is just make sure to change the default passwords on any of your IoT devices and actually take the time to set up the security configurations. Usually it takes a little bit longer to do that than just to set it up real quick, but it will help you in the long
I have a
run and be more
question
Be a whole
about
lot
secure.
quicker than
that.
recovering your
Yeah.
data.
I don't know, I wanted to ask you anyway, but I also heard the suggestion that putting your IoT devices, which, your thermostats and all the cameras on a different network, like
Yep.
separate
Yeah.
from your
Because what you
other-
could do in your house is you can have basically segmented networks, virtual LAN. So you have like one network is all your computers, and then you can have another network that's just for your security cameras. You can have another network that's common in actual businesses where you have one network for your data, one network for your phone traffic, one network for your security devices, and they're all in a separate network. Because then what happens is if one of those gets breached, there may be no communication from one network to the other. So even though they're inside your house, they can't communicate and they can't see each other and they're on completely separate
If
paths.
the Titanic had been sinking from a cyber attack and
Yep.
it had
It could close the
segmented
one.
networks,
Yes.
wouldn't have sank.
Yeah. Unfortunately, their networks bled into each other and then it
Yep.
went down. Yep.
It all
You
mixed.
have to
Totally.
take the time to
Yep.
set it up securely.
100 years ago.
Yeah. If you're doing it for
Right?
business, reach
Of
out to
course.
us. We can help configure your stuff, obviously, and help do that properly. Supply chain attacks are becoming more common, and that's where an attacker is able to get into where a software is hosted, maliciously change something, and then it gets downloaded to legitimate people. And a common example is this was the 3CX hack, which is just a voice over IP software. And they basically got in, changed the code a little bit, and it was actually pushed from like 3CX down because they didn't know attackers were in there changing it, and it got pushed to a bunch of people. And then once people were complaining or they noticed it, they had to completely change it. So those are very rare, but when they happen, it tends to be pretty widespread or catastrophic if it's not caught right away because your computers are downloading from a trusted source. They think it's the legitimate one, but it was essentially altered at the source. So now it's being distributed maliciously. Those are a lot more, those are pretty targeted. Those are pretty tough
That's
to pull off.
hard.
But yeah, the only way you can really mitigate against that is by using an zero trust, like the application whitelisting. Like we have a program that does that because every program essentially has a fingerprint called a hash. It's a unique key. And every time you update your versions, it gets a new fingerprint. So even so you have Microsoft Word 2010, 2015, whatever, each version change has a fingerprint. So an example of that 3CX software, there's a certain fingerprint for the latest version. And they looked at their fingerprint, but the hacked one was a unique fingerprint not seen anywhere else because they altered the code a little bit. So you can, if it's not learned the new update yet and you get a new update using that, the application whitelisting, the bouncer in front of the club that's looking at what can be allowed to work in here or not, unless it's maliciously approved, then as well, be like, oh, there's another update. Someone could approve it, but typically you're looking and reviewing that prior to the approval. And if it doesn't match the official source, it will be blocked. So they can use machine learning and AI to help detect that kind of stuff happening on your system to help prevent that. But
If you want to know more about that, just look on our
Yeah.
YouTube channel for Zero Trust. We talked about that.
that is the scariest one because your stuff can download stuff that thinks it's legitimate and runs, and there's
Yeah.
nothing you can do other than have those really advanced security measures in place.
Learn from other people's tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Phishing and social engineering tactics. So that's becoming more and more advanced, where before it was typically just emails, then you get the text messages, and now it's getting to the point where they actually can use AI to leave spoofed voicemails, all kinds of stuff. So just be very vigilant with your phishing attacks. Again, the best way to mitigate against that is to have security awareness training and do the fake email messages on purpose to your staff, and then train them when they do click on the link. The regulatory compliance challenges are happening more and more often, and that's typically being driven by cyber insurance. It used to be everyone could get an insurance policy for cyber insurance, but what happened is the insurance companies started having to pay out way more money than they were taking in because everyone was getting ransomware, everyone was getting attacked. So now they have you have to have a good driving record before you get your insurance. It's similar to that. You need to have MFA enforced everywhere. You need to have certain security things in place before the insurance will actually take you on as a client now. And so that's actually driving a lot of this compliance policy. That's where we are actually seeing and helping a lot of our clients through that, because a lot of it is self-reported too. You have to say that, we're meeting this standard and it's on your honor. And then if something were to happen and you didn't actually configure it properly, they may not actually
be fraud too, and you could get legal action.
If you're in an environment that you have to be regulated, you could have potential fines attached to it as well.
Yeah, we know how to take care of that. And then a lot of times, if you try to take care of it yourself, those lists are really confusing.
Yeah, because you may not be you may be like, I know my software's in the cloud, but is the data encrypted at rest and transit, all that other technical stuff you may not know. And so it's best not to guess. Just reach out to us and we can help you through those renewals for sure. There is also noticing that there's a shortage of cybersecurity talent. The demand for skilled cybersecurity professionals exceeds the supply currently, so it's harder as a small business to actually create your own dream team internally of experts to do it. And that's why there's so many MSPs now, is because for a fraction of it would be to hire your own 5 employees, you could basically hire an entire team of 20 or 30 skilled employees, pay a monthly fee, and now you have the expertise of an entire group that can tackle all kinds of things and not just be siloed in one area. So that's
your MSPs, and, they're not getting sick or anything like that. I mean, we still work great with internal IT folks, of course, but
and that's the best relationship, in my opinion, where you might have
I love that. That's
people on site that we can work with directly and upskill train, give them the keys to the kingdom, that kind of stuff, and just be their escalation point if they have something.
And it gives them some peace of mind too, to just be able to be an actual
someone else to watch their back.
Person I need to take a day. Okay, cool. We'll monitor it for you.
Right.
10 years ago, the IT guy never took a break.
No,
the weekends whenever the attackers are attacking, you gotta basically make sure things are going good, updating everything. You got backups, you got all kinds of stuff to worry about now. So it's hard for just a couple people to manage that. So usually that's where managed service providers step in. We talked about it briefly earlier, but the adoption of zero trust security. So that's advanced security software, where essentially there's a list of who's allowed to run in your network, and any new software outside of that list has to be approved as needed. So no one can download anything, and even true legitimate things, if it's a newer version of it, will have to be approved for an update. But then once the update's approved, everyone after that will automatically download, but the initial approval has to happen, which again just keeps your environment protected against those supply chain attacks or other advanced attack vectors. And then I talked about it earlier with the AI, how it's everywhere, but the software tools are also using AI and machine language on the defense. So usually your antivirus used to just download the latest updates and things like that. Well, now you're using endpoint detection and response software, which is a lot more advanced. Yes, there's definitions that kind of are known malicious, but it actually uses machine learning and can look at real time what things are happening, and also block what they call living on the land attacks, is where if someone gets into your network, they may use actual tools on your computer that are there for legitimate purposes, but for bad purposes. And so traditional antivirus will not detect that, because a user is just opening up control panel or services or PowerShell. It's not an actual virus, but they're doing bad things with it, where Jenny's never ran a PowerShell script on her own before on her computer. She starts running PowerShell scripts. It's going to stop that and see, why is Jenny doing this? And it can use advanced tools like that to help block attacks that are from that. So, And so there was this kind of ties into this other article we had about emerging trends in 2025. So the few here that we've already talked about, like there's artificial intelligence, machine learning is a big trend, again, on the defense as well as, on the offense. Everyone's kind of using it. They have extended detection and response, or XDR solutions. And what those are the most advanced solutions that we have. Some usually only our top tier clients are doing it, because what it's doing is it's adjusting logs from multiple sources and then looking at trends with them. An example I give is, you may have firewall logs, you have your logs on your computer, your Windows logs, You may have logs from your cloud, like your Microsoft M365 logs, and what it can do is suck all those logs into one central point, and then it actually normalizes them and makes them all in a format that we can then search through and look to see, and just kind of take all this data to create a bigger picture. Because after an event happens, you're always asking, like, how did they get into the system? Who was the account that got attacked first? Were they able to move to another account? How did this all happen? And you can build that story by having all these logs, because they're all over the place, and it used to be manual work. You have to pull the logs here, look at the timestamp, compare it to this and that. Now we can suck all that data together, have it in one source normalized, and look through it. And using AI tools and machine learning can comb through that faster than any human could ever do.
Cool.
So cloud security is a big one. There's a lot more cloud monitoring software out there that's important too, because traditionally you used to have the firewall, protect your business, protect your physical house. That's pretty much all you needed to do. But because now you're having more of your data reside in the cloud, it's important to have your multi-factor, having, you can actually have backups of your cloud, to have segmented backups from your cloud software even. Things like that are very important to do in order to prevent from that. And then the other one here talks about blockchain technology, which is typically, most people just think about like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency when they think blockchain. But the technology of blockchain could be used in other ways as well. An example, and you'd have to understand how it works at a technical level. So the idea of a blockchain is that there's a ledger or a paper trail that essentially never changes and is shared among everyone to prevent fraud. So the idea is, if I had, again, I'll use the money example. Say I had $100 and I gave $50 to Jenny. That's marked on like an accountant log, and then everyone that's participating gets a copy of that to say, hey, here's what happened, so we know where the funds are. And then Jenny gives $25 to Eli gives money back to me. Every single transaction is logged on a giant piece of paper that keeps growing and growing and growing. And that can't be.
And that's the blockchain?
And that's the actual blockchain. So it's like a chain of blocks of data that contain all the transactions that had happened or what had done. So another example, you could have voting, where you could have anonymized voting that actually can't be changed or done using blockchain technology, because each of you would get one vote. It would be hashed out and in a thing that's immutable, because
kind of like a fingerprint?
Kind of like a fingerprint in a sense.
Like
because
it's unique?
It's unique to you,
It's unique to each transaction.
And the idea is you can go back in history and see every transaction that has happened. It's actually open. So
interesting.
And how it can be secure is that if you have enough people participating in this, the only way you can change it is if you change, say I give you $50, but Eli's an attacker and he's like, you know what, I'm going to make it that Tim gave me $50 and I'm going to share that. That one will be different than everyone else's list. And so the list automatically can detect fake inputs, and then it will disregard that one because it was cheating. So unless you had enough computation power to create 51% of the entire network, you can't alter and change things. They call it a 51% attack. And that would be once your currency or your chain technology grows so much, there's just no way that no one's going to have that much computation power to override the existing chain of what's happened. So think of an accountant or a bank account where every time you make a withdrawal or add money in, it's like a statement, right? But the statement is shared among everyone participating.
They all have the same.
And they all have the same statements. They all line up. And if one statement doesn't line up, it will be disregarded because it's fake. Someone's trying to cheat and cheat the books. Someone's trying to change the books a little bit. It'll be rejected because it's not the majority that has it. So
interesting.
I could go into a lot more detail. It's probably a horrible explanation of it, but the idea is that it's
no, it makes a little bit of sense to me.
Right.
To me, and I'm not as techie as you, so I think that helps.
But you might see blockchain in more like supply chain, just tracking things, right? Because you as a vendor, say Amazon, you have millions and billions of different products all going over the world.
That might be.
You could tag each product with a key and have some sort of a blockchain. So now you can see where all your products are going, and there'll be less missing because each thing has a key unique to it, and all this package went away, what happened to it, and you might have better tracking potentially in like logistics. There's other things where you could potentially use where just think of a list of transactions that can't be changed, and it's very, very secure and no one can cook the books or make little changes.
So
question, things. Yes.
Would that stop the third party like scams of like, let's say Cisco equipment on Amazon or wherever they're selling them?
Potentially, because if you as a company adopted, say, blockchain technology and then Cisco, so say every Cisco device had a serial number, a manufacturer number, and now it has a blockchain number attached to it. And so if you didn't have that same blockchain fingerprint, it's not from a legitimate seller because it's not authorized from Cisco.
Yeah.
So basically, like you're
That would
fingerprinting
be
everything
cool.
is basically what you're doing with blockchain.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So and that technology is still very new. People are still figuring out how they can use it in other purposes other than just making cryptocurrencies, like using it for real functions in the world to do other attacks. So
we'll have to watch for that.
that's about all I left with a
So-
little confusing one there, but it's
That's
an
okay.
important one. You'll hear more of
Food for
that.
thought.
You'll hear more about blockchain in the coming 5-10 years as it actually gets rolled into it. And you may not even know it's doing that. It's just going to be happening in the background, programmed into software to make it more secure for tracking purposes and things like that.
Interesting. So we're looking into 2025 with lots of new threats, but lots of new tools.
Yep.
So cool. If you would like a free security scan, drop scan, I'll get it to you. And if you have any questions or ideas that you want to drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Anything else?
That's about it. Yeah, don't be too scared. Just be prepared.
Yep.
Oh, I like
That's
that.
right.
Don't be scared. Be prepared. That's our new tagline.
That's right.
All right. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.